Number one, I am a rock rib conservative, unabashedly so. Many of you listen to the program know that. And when I talk about conservatism, do for self is as conservative as it comes. I'm a capitalist. I believe in the free enterprise system. I believe that people need to get paid. They call me get paid Wade. I want everybody to eat. Everybody's got to eat. Now here's the deal. I invite your participation going forward. I want you to continue to watch Cwu-Tv and listen to the Kim Wade Show at WYAB 103.9 FM, WYAB.com, Monday through Fridays from 4 to 6. Continue to listen in, add your input, and see if we can be the example for all of America to point to and say, they doing it right down in Jackson, Mississippi. Now there's a message in there for a believer. Welcome back to Wade 2025 on Cwu-Tv on YouTube. Today, we'll focus on the changes that are required in Jackson that actually cost no money. And you just heard me talk about the educational approach, where the teachers have sole control of the classroom. And the administrative state on the other side of that door of that classroom will be responsible for any little knucklehead who don't want to comport himself to the rules of that classroom. And they can work their dope boy magic on their child, and if they need an alternative school, to the alternative school, that's them. But the 24 students who want to learn are going to get their education. Now, that's going to require an attitude change. Again, no cost, no money involved. Those educators need to get up off the high horse and don't get offended and say, well, you can't tell us what to do. We wear white shirts and a suit. Well, we can appreciate all that. But you say you love the kids. You say you have the ability to make changes in these kids' lives. Well, these are some changes that you can make. And we're asking that you, if you would, respectfully, kindly, we implore you, we plead with you. Jackson Public School Board, make the changes, giving the teachers sole control over who gets to sit in the classroom. This is not an abuse of authority. This has nothing to do with big I's and little U's. This is about discipline and control. So much of the discipline and control has been taken out of our classrooms and out of our public schools by these nonprofit, liberal, white-ran legal groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center, the ACLU, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. They go to federal court on behalf of some knucklehead child who doesn't want to be in school or on behalf of this child's parents, saying that their child got suspended and they didn't suspend a white child or a Mexican child or an Asian child in proportion. See, that kind of foolishness there has just basically destroyed the structure in so many of our public schools. But now this is what we can do to get around that. If we can get that knucklehead out of the classroom and let those other 24 get their education, then rather than adding 10 or 20 juvenile delinquents to the pool at the end of every calendar year, we only add one. Because if you have, like I said, 24 students and half of them can't get their lessons in because they can't hear what the teacher's saying because this person's disrupting the class, we can do better. We can work around all these groups that are working against the interests of our community by destroying our kids. This is why I have a hard time understanding where the NAACP comes from. It's coming from when they say they're concerned about the school to prison pipelines when they go into federal court to sue to destroy the structure and the discipline in the classroom. No, House. This is what the Kim Wade Show is all about. This is what Wade 2025 is all about. Folks, we're going in a different direction. We've gone as far as we can go in the direction we're headed. We've got members of the black community who have gotten their grind on down through the years. As I said earlier in today's show, we're part of the generations. I'm 66. We're part of the generations that the dollars fell on, the opportunities fell on. 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, affirmative action, set-asides, all that kind of stuff. They rained money down on us. And now we've gotten comfortable and we're ignoring what's best for our kids because we're so busy getting our grind on, getting our hustle on, to the exclusion of them getting their education on. We're breaking all that up at the door. Oh, I don't mean maybe, I don't mean perhaps. We're breaking this up at the door. Well, who do you think you are, Kim Wade? My question to you, Who do I need to be? I'm sitting up here watching you guys take advantage. Kim, who do you mean you guys? Any of those who stand in the way of these kids getting an education. You know, I got Wade 2025 up there in regards to possible political aspirations. But let me just say this here. Whatever you hear me talk about, either as a talk show host, a citizen, or a candidate, the backdrop against everything that I'm saying is going to be what's good for babies, kids, and property values. Because if you take care of those things there, everything else is going to take care of themselves. This is not rocket science. What we've had, and I've said this before on my radio program, those who have been longtime listeners, the black community went off the rails in 1968, and specifically April 4th, 1968. You know what that date was? That was the date that Dr. King got shot. And I believe, this is my personal belief, and I feel very strongly about this, Dr. King was shot as a result of the complicity of Jesse Jackson Jr., the Judas goat. He set Dr. King up to be murdered. I still believe to this day that Jesse Jackson is on paper for the FBI and the counterintelligence programs that was being ran against the black community and Dr. King back at that time. When Dr. King died, when he was shot, Jesse was airlifted up to Chicago to be on the morning talk show with Max Robinson to talk about what happened. He still had the blood on his shirt where Dr. King got shot. You know, people don't realize, or many don't, that Jesse was down on the ground on the first floor. He was at the parking lot level when Dr. King got shot, because he didn't want to be up there when the shooting got started. But nonetheless, let's skip forward here. The purpose of them installing Jesse as the head Negro in charge, and the reason why I have to put this in context to everything else I'm saying, so you'll know how we got here, where we got all these indifferent so-called leaders in our community, whether it be in the educational community, the business community, or the spiritual community. Jesse's job and role as the head Negro in charge after Dr. King got killed was to remove the spiritual underpinnings of Dr. King's movement. And so look at us today. We got all these ministers. We got all these men and women of God with no power. Dr. King, one man, he and those who are his contemporaries, the Meggers of his time, and the various other leaders throughout the various states, they had a spiritual underpinning. The devil, those white Democrats, knew they could not fade the power behind Dr. King, which the power of God that stiffened his spine, stiffened the spine of all those leaders, Megger and others. So they were able to withstand all that was going on. So they couldn't fade that power, so they had to kill the messenger, and that's what they did. And they put Jesse in. And Jesse's job, as I said, was to remove the spiritual underpinnings of the movement. And what Jesse has done since 1968 has moved the civil rights movement 1 degree off due north. Until now, we're pointing south. We're not able to accomplish the things that we were once accomplishing with little effort, with great sacrifice. So now is the time that somebody's got to call these things out. And so what Jesse did, he ushered in the era of the selfish black leader. Because when Megger and Martin and others, they sacrificed. In many cases, they put their own money up. They put their own, when Megger and Martin and these civil rights leaders went to jail, you know who was getting them out? People who owned juke joints, people who owned a little corner store, people who had farmers who had a good harvest. They put up land, they put up their nickels and dimes to get them folks out. You never hear A.G. Gaston being talked about during Black History Month like you hear about the political civil rights leaders. But for the A.G. Gastons of the world and the Vernon Dahmers and those people who had those little entrepreneurs, little shops, putting up their nickels and dimes and giving people places to hold their meetings, we wouldn't be here today. But they don't talk about those folks in terms of what they actually did. But that's another story. I'm going way off further than I want. But the bottom line is Jesse's role was to remove that secret sauce, that power that undergirded the movement. Now you see people running these venerable organizations, the NAACP, the Urban League. I mean, these people are just selling the imprimatur of those organizations to the highest bidder. And this is why we're not seeing the gains that we have, which is going to take us back to the attitude changes that must happen if we're going to actually pull off making America better for succeeding generations as it was bequeathed to us and as we received it. We got to make some adjustments. It is not rocket science. You and I can make these changes, but we're going to have to demand that those who be in charge, and this brings us to a point here. Why is it that out of all the racial demographic groups out there, why is it that black people feel like they have to be led by somebody? I'm not a leader. What I am is a project manager. I can say, okay, we need to move this over here. We wasted money over here. This is not bearing fruit. We're not good stewards. But everybody wants to be a leader. Everybody wants to be a drum major. Everybody wants to be out there throwing the baton up with the big hat on, high stepping, but nobody wants to get out there and be in charge. That's what's going on in the city of Jackson. Everybody's got a title, it seems, but nobody's responsible. We're breaking all that up at the door. There's things going to have to be done that people who have gotten comfortable are going to be made uncomfortable. And let me be clear, as I said during my opening, I'm a capitalist. I believe in the free enterprise system. I believe in people getting their grind on. I believe if you spend 8 hours a day doing something, you need to be getting compensated for it. I ain't got no problem with that. But what we have now is those sons of Jesse, as I call them. Those are the leaders that have arisen since Jesse Jackson ascended to head Negro in charge of Negroes in this country. And that is this selfishness, that it's all about me. They won't leave the stage of life. They won't let anybody else. We done went from the glass ceiling to a pie crust, where that brown pie crust is keeping anybody else from percolating up through the top. We're breaking all that up at the door. Again, we're going to do the things that is good for babies and what's good for property values. This is not rocket science. But what it's going to require is a ramrod steel spine undergirded by the word of God and the courage to carry out the faith that word is imparted to all of us. So we're going to do it. And they can accept it, they can get ran over by it, or they can get left behind. The old black man told me something before. He said, you got 3 choices here in Mississippi. You ain't changing nothing. If they don't want something changed, you got 3 choices: Parchment, Greyhound, or Pine Box. Well, to that old venerable old man who's long gone past, we're going to make these changes because we're going to stand and we will not be moved. And again, like I said before, this is not proprietary what's being proposed and what we're going to do. It's just going to require us standing together and putting an end to the BS. You and I, we're going to do it. We'll be right back. Number 1, I am a rock rib conservative, unabashedly so. Many of you listen to the program know that. And when I talk about conservatism, do for self is as conservative as it comes. I'm a capitalist. I believe in the free enterprise system. I believe that people need to get paid. They call me get paid Wade. I want everybody to eat. Everybody's got to eat. Now here's the deal. I invite your participation going forward. I want you to continue to watch Cwu-Tv and listen to the Kim Wade Show at WYAB 103.9 FM, WYAB.com, Monday through Fridays from 4 to 6. Continue to listen in, add your input, and see if we can't be the example for all of America to point to and say, they doing it right down in Jackson, Mississippi. Now there's a message in there for a believer. All right, welcome back to Wade 2025 on Cwu-Tv on YouTube. Today we've been focusing on the changes in Jackson that require very little money or no money at all. Cultural changes, attitude changes, holding folks accountable. Folks, that's what we intend to do. Jackson is not broke in the sense that people think it's broke. It's broke because it has a poverty spirit that has descended upon us that we intend to lift up off us. Again, the things that we're talking about doing, it's going to require you and I to make some cultural changes and some attitude changes. And some of those things that's going to be required is that those of us who have been on the stage of life, who have been enjoying the best that America has to offer, we have to make room. We have to encourage our young folks to be more flexible. I've always said, and I've always admired those young brothers in the rap game. The Tupacs, the Dr. Dre's, the Master P's, the Lil Wayne's, these folks, 50 Cent, these folks put the rap game in a headlock. When Little Richard and all those Jackie, what's the guy's name? Anyway, all those artists from the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s were getting ripped off by the record companies. The young boys stood up there and said, now we ain't going out like that. And they changed. They put the rap game and they put the music game in a headlock. Now they getting paid. They selling less records and making more money. Folks, that's what we're talking about. Right now, the things that are holding Jackson back and holding many of the black communities across this country back are three groups of Negroes. The set-aside Negroes, the black for a living Negroes, and the free-to-land Negroes. Now, Kim, first of all, what do you mean? Give us a definition of a set-aside Negro. A set-aside Negro is those individuals who have been taking advantage of the set-aside programs, the affirmative action programs, et cetera. Don't get me wrong, affirmative action has been around a long time. In fact, when Maynard Jackson was alive, when I was in Atlanta, Maynard got us jobs out at the airport. I worked at Eastern Airlines, a couple of my friends worked at Delta. No, I worked at Delta, and a couple other of my friends worked at Eastern Airlines and yada, yada, yada. But the deal was this here. Those were slots made available through the affirmative action program. But back then, it was a whole different ball game. Affirmative action, for instance, when Judge Henry Wingate was coming up, when the Stimley sisters and brothers were going to Harvard, those folks actually had to stand and deliver. They didn't get in there on no shallow academic credentials. They came in there ready for prime time. And now we're starting to let things slide. And what we have now are a bunch of set-aside Negroes who, for instance, did the water, sewer, Siemens contract. They gave us the green weenie. I'm talking about a green weenie this long. We ain't putting up with that no more. No. We, the citizens of Jackson, will no longer pay $1.25 and $1.50 for services and products for minority set-aside folks, just so we can say we got minority set-aside folks. We can't afford it. First of all, the white power structure that ran Jackson is long gone. It's all ran by black folk. So when we are doing the set-aside programs the way they're presently being done, all we're doing is tithing to these Negroes. Oh, no. Or in the words of Bishop Bullwinkle, hell to the no. No. We're not doing that anymore. And they can get offended. They can take it personal, but you ain't taking no more money, not like that. Now, I'm not saying you can't bid on contracts. We're just not going to give you an extra point for you being black. And then the way they got it set up, they got this Asian girl, I believe, down in Atlanta. They put her on every contract. So pretty much every contract that they do on the minority set-aside, she get like 1%. So she'll get a check for $100,000 out of nowhere just because they put her name. See, that $100,000 can go towards street repair. I ain't into Asians like that. I ain't into black folks like that. So I'm just telling you, that's the kind of stuff that's going to get broken up at the door day one, should I become mayor of this city. And again, I know there'll be folks out there who will want me to run just so they can vote against me. I understand that. I'm not your huckleberry. If you're interested in complaining about the past, racism, sexism, ism, I'm not your huckleberry. But if you're interested in the things working, streets getting fixed, things like that, baby, I'm telling you, I'm your guy. But if all you want is trying to get your boys in there where they can make an extra, and see the thing about it, a lot of these set-aside Negroes, as I call them, it ain't like they intentionally doing wrong, but because they're working with, in many cases, too many corrupt officials within the government. Then what we end up doing, as I said, paying more for the services, and in many cases, the services aren't even being delivered. We just spent $500 million on water meters in the city of Jackson, meters that weren't broke. But you had a group of folks who got together and said, you know what? I got this plan, man, we can do this here, and man, we can hit a lick. And they did. And now that $500 million has basically destroyed the financial wherewithal of the city of Jackson. And remember, when we pay these set-aside extra quarters and 50 cents per dollar, all we doing is tithing to these Negroes. Oh, no, I don't think so. I told you I ain't into black folks like that. I'm sorry. Call me Uncle Tom. You can call me Aunt Sue. I don't care. I'm breaking it up at the door. Because these old folks, do you realize many of our old black folks in their 80s, 90s, and up in there, that in their entire life, they probably had about a 10 or 15 year window where they actually had some real peace, where they could go to town and not worry about some young white boy accosting them, accusing them of doing something, and they not making it home safe. And now in their old age, they can't go to town worrying about some young black child doing the same thing. Oh no, see, things have gotten too far gone. That's what I'm saying. We're gonna break some things up. Now that's what I say about the set-aside Negroes. Who are the free-to-land Negroes? Those are the chalk line Lumumba folks. You know chalk lines, and what's his assistant? Huma, Hondo, whatever his name is. I remember when those Negroes running around there, he trying to look like Malcolm, and chalk lines just tailing along, and they talking about free to land and all that stuff, and now that they done got papered up, bro, you don't hear them talking about that no more. Folks, listen to what I'm telling you. I don't care what anybody tell you. Whatever ism they pushing, nationalism, communism, gayism, blackism, whatever ism it is, at the end of the day, capitalism is what run everything. When Kim Jong-il over there in North Korea talk all that communism crap, when the Communist Chinese Party talk all that communism crap, when they want some Cavassier, when they want some Levi blue jeans, you know what they got to have? Dollar bills, y'all, Deutschmarks, pesos. And these folks know it. Chalk lines know it. The set-aside Negroes know that, but everybody doing this for you. We doing this for the brother man. We doing this for the motherland. Yada, yada. Nah, Negro. I ain't buying that no more. I bought that under Farrakhan. Oh, we gonna build this and we gonna build that. The Moonies who were operating at the same time when I was in the nation, they be on one corner selling flowers, and we be on one corner selling those plums and newspaper. The Moonies made their money, bought hotels and newspapers all across the world, and we still out here renting. The game is over, dog. These young folks got to eat. And I encourage you young folks out there, y'all need to get involved with politics, both Republican and the Democrat Party. Put this game in a headlock. These old heads, they are beholden to the Democrat Party to the exclusion of everything that works. And that's why I'm talking about attitude changes and cultural changes. We need to have a talk with the Derek Johnsons of the world, with the Benny Thompsons of the world, with the Ben Jealouses of the world. Dude, what kind of arrangements are y'all setting up? Are y'all getting us into as black folks? Because this crap is like sharecropping. It's like we ain't gonna ever get caught up. Whenever we have a good crop, we go in there to sell up, we still in the hole. This is like paying your Comcast bill. Don't matter how much you pay those boys, you always a month behind. And this kind of stuff is over with. And this is why I said there's a new sheriff in town. I'm the last of the honest to God, no nonsense Negroes. I ain't smiled since 1969. And really, I wasn't smiling in that picture. I think I had gas. So I'm just telling you, things are going to change. So for 4 years, if I become mayor of this city, all that BS that they've been doing, now don't get me wrong. The set-aside Negroes and everybody else who want to bid on city contracts will still be able to bid on them. You just ain't going to, look, rather than y'all being able to make a killing, you're going to make a profit. Because when you're making a killing and then you make your money and then go move out to Madison, that's what Harvey Johnson did. Do y'all know that? He talked all that old black crap. He talked all that I'm an urban planner. And then when he got papered up, got his money, got his sack, he moved out there under Mary Hawkins, where he really got some good city services. Nah, bruh, we're going to keep it real. I live here in Jackson, been here in Jackson, and we're going to make this thing work. But at the end of the day, as I've said before, everybody's going to eat. Everybody's got to eat. Everybody's going to be able to get your roll on. You'll be able to do business with the city of Jackson. Even if you don't agree with my politics, you're still going to be able to get fair shake in the city of Jackson if I'm running it. If somebody's dogging you out from the city and you happen to be one of my political opponents, you still going to get good city services because we need the money to flow. This ain't rocket science, baby. They doing it everywhere else. But what we have to do is put ourselves in a position where we can take advantage of these things. And what we have to do, we have to break up at the door, is all these Negroes who are taking advantage of other black folks simply because they're trafficking in the trust that the average black person has for them as a leader, as a higher up, as a spiritual leader, as a business leader, as a political leader. So what we're going to ask for and what we're going to demand and what we're going to get is accountability. I don't mean maybe, I don't mean perhaps. So if you can't stand pain, you need to vote for that other guy. But if you want change, I'm your huckleberry. Everybody's going to eat. Everybody's going to be able to get their roll on. We've gone as far as we can go in the direction we're headed. Every city councilman will have a set of pothole fillers that they can call on and say, look, I got a pothole over here on the corner of Mobile and Woodrow Wilson. Put it on the list to get done, and they're going to be on it. City council member will be able to walk directly into that director's office of any agency in the city and say, hey, this is what my concerns are. They ain't got to go through the mayor. We're cutting out all this petty crap. And to the business owner, baby, y'all be carrying the radio strongman around on your shoulders because we're going to do business in Jackson. Everybody in Jackson who wants to eat is going to eat. And everybody who wants to get their roll on will be able to get their roll on. So this is your host, Radio Strongman. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in 22 hours. Number one, I am a rock rib conservative, unabashedly so. Many of you listen to the program know that. And when I talk about conservatism, do for self is as conservative as it comes. I'm a capitalist. I believe in the free enterprise system. I believe that people need to get paid. They call me get paid Wade. I want everybody to eat. Everybody's got to eat. Now here's the deal. I invite your participation going forward. I want you to continue to watch Cwu-Tv and listen to the Kim Wade Show at WYAB 103.9 FM, WYAB.com, Monday through Fridays from 4 to 6. Continue to listen in, add your input, and see if we can't be the example for all of America to point to and say, they're doing it right down in Jackson, Mississippi. Now there's a message in there for a believer.